morning, good morning. I know you're supposed to start out with a joke, but traffic is serious, so we're gonna skip that and get right into the meat. We got a long presentation. These are really two presentations in one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and talk about the TIF, which is the part of the funding mechanism, and I think of interest to everybody. Answer some questions about that, if anybody has any, and then we'll move into the actual traffic project, just so we're going to keep that separate, funding and project separate in the presentation. I'm going to start with just showing you cost. The TIF district generates about $18 million as proposed, and the town has already obligated $7.5 million of hospitality tax to this project. So those funds will be combined to fund the overall project. I think it's important to talk about what a TIF is real quickly. A lot of people have a misconception that a TIF actually causes you to pay more taxes, and that isn't true at all. All the TIF is designating taxes from a specific location. There's no increase, it's just whatever the property taxes would have been in that location to go to a specific project. And it's when multiple jurisdictions, so in this case we've approached the county and the school district to obligate their taxes that are generated from the site that we're going to discuss to go towards this project. So again, the taxes would be exactly the same with or without a TIF district. It really is just where the money is obligated to go. It's almost just a budget outside of the normal budgeting process. So this is the Corley Mill area. It's about 3,400 acres. I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with the area, bordered by the Saluda, Highway 6 and 378. The area in red is the area that's supposed to be the TIF district. It's about almost 264 acres. There's a blow up of that area right there. That's the high school. I don't know if you can. This is the high school, so it's directly across the street from the high school. Here's the dam that overflows when we have bad weather, or used to anyway, just to give everybody their bearings. So this district is composed only of four parcels. This and this parcel are the same, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the total area. This area right here is the old mine. It was the Borel brick mine. Many of you might remember it for a time. That was a convenience station for the county, and then that was moved. So what are the existing conditions on the site? We'll talk about that before we talk about the investment that's going to be made. So essentially the old farmhouse is about the only structure on the site that has any value to it. There are some outbuildings and some barns and things like that, and the rest of it is wetlands, or there's about more than 100 acres of wet area. And then, now one thing I will point out about the farmhouse is the owners, the sisters that own the larger parcel, that farmhouse is very important to them, has a historic value in its own right, and then has family historic value for them. And so they have required that it remain on the site, and it will be used as part of the projects that I'm about to describe. So if we've got any historical people here, that is not going away. There's some of the outbuildings, and again, scrub and woodlands. So this is the taxable value right now. Total taxable value, $12,000 a year. Everything's woodland, it's all timber, it's farmland. So you can say, $100 goes to Midland Tech. Very, very small numbers here. So what the TIF proposes to do is to capture the increase in value of the investment on the site. So you can see over 20 years at current taxable values that those four parcels are only going to generate about $240,000. So let's talk about what the investment's going to be to show where that increase in value is going to come from. So first this is a site plan of a neighborhood that's proposed. It's actually already been permitted in the county. They've got site plan approval in the area that is the old clay mine. So that's going to be a single-family neighborhood, then a much larger development that wraps around it. This entire area that's outlined in blue will be in a conservation easement that's over 100 acres. So the TIF itself is almost 64 acres. Over 100 of that's going to be in a conservation easement, and not only will remain the way it is now and in perpetuity. So that's great when we see large tracts of land, especially in such a beautiful area as Corley Mill Road Reserve. We've got some commercial in these sites that's proposed, so we're not exactly sure what that would be, but we expect that it'll probably be professional offices. We've got a large high-end, I'll show you the numbers on it, apartment complex, and then some single family that stretches back in over here, so the white lots are single family homes. So here's that investment over the 2021 build out. You're looking at a total of $106 million invested in private dollars to, again, that raises that taxable value of that property. And let's see if I can, here's the apartment complex. When I say high end, the developer's looking at investing $32 million in that one complex. So now let's get to the private investment. The public investment. So this is a table showing what would be generated from that public investment that happens in the sense of tax dollars, i.e. what we're going to capture from property taxes to be able to fund the project that we're going to discuss later. You'll see the county, and it's the county and other agencies, so that's Midlands Tech and the Rec Commission. That's any other agency that the county sets the millage for, which is pretty much everybody but the town and the school district that you see on your tax bill. So that their investment over those 20 years is $11 million. The town investment is almost $11 million at 10.7. Of course, our tax investment, because our millage is comparatively low, is only $3 million, but we are putting 7.5 of that hospitality tax that council's already assigned to this project in there, and then the school district's at 3.7. So that gives us those totals that we saw earlier. So that is a brief overview of the TIF and how it works to generate money. I'm going to move next into the actual traffic project and what project that's being proposed. But if there's any quick questions I could answer about the TIF, I'd like to do that at this time before you get off on the project itself. Yes, ma'am.
Since about 46% of the state's going to be over 65 in about 15 years, thank you. How are you going to accommodate for that in this plan? And also, will there be some homes that are more universal design so that anybody, any age, any ability can use the homes?
Yes, ma'am. I think I can address that by saying the market really deals with that. So we don't have a requirement in the town that's above and beyond regular building standards that require accessibility inside of a home. But what we see is that builders see the value of that and offer those features, and I think that's true in pretty much all the neighborhoods that we have now.
And your builder will be doing that as well?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, the market drives that. So if the builder on those lots wants to make money, I think they'll offer that type of service.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not driving as fast as we need to, but there's 10,000 of us turning 65 every day.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's a big concern.
Yes, ma'am. Any other? All right, let's get off onto the project itself. So, again, everybody is very aware of the Corley Mill area. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but I am going to talk about what council tasked staff with. So town council said during the whole hospitality tax process that this was one of the areas that they wanted staff to focus on. And they also said they don't want Band-Aid solutions. We don't want to spend a few $1 million to fix a problem that's only going to hold up for a year or two. And with our increase in traffic numbers, we'll talk about traffic count numbers, talk about in a minute, it's easy to fall into that trap. It's easy to throw in a couple of turn lanes or make a few minor modifications. So you've got some cones out there and some people working, and when they get done, looks like things are a little better for a little while, but then a year or 2 years down the road, you don't really get what you wanted out of it. You can't even tell that any work was done. So they said they wanted a solution that was a 20-year look in the future. So take the numbers of traffic that we've got now, look at how those percent increases that we've had, count those in, figure those into the model, and design for 20 years in the future. So that's the most important thing that you should take out of this, that this is not a fix for today or tomorrow. This is a fix for 20 years down the road, 2040. So this is the study area. It included 22 intersections, went all the way to River Bluff on Corley Mill Road, went all the way to Meadow Glen and Wellesley neighborhoods on Jenny Lane, and then it went a good ways in both direction of Sunset Boulevard, or 378, because we also did not want to just fix the problem at Corley Mill, but then push it to another intersection, force it over to Northwoods or force it across I-20. So we still have the same problem, it's just somebody else's problem. That's not a solution that's effective. So how do we go about getting to a project? Well, first thing we did, and it's important that everybody get that these designs weren't done in a box. So it wasn't done in an echo chamber. It wasn't just town traffic engineers that came up with it. We went and procured the services of Mead and Hunt, which should be well known by all. They're a big traffic agency. They're actually located, or they have a branch in town. They do a lot of on-call work for the county, so they're well known. And so we got their engineers involved with our engineers, and then that group went to DOT and said, hey, this is what we're planning for. This is the solution we're looking for. So those three bodies, the town, the consultant, and DOT engineers all worked together to come up with some prospective projects. And they developed 7 different projects to model. And so what does model mean? There's some great software out there that, and I think we'll see a video here in a little bit if it'll run on the computer. Sometimes it won't run, but that lets you model traffic flowing through a system. So you can make tweaks and changes and see what works and doesn't work. And so they did that with 7 different projects. This is kind of an overlay of all 7 of those projects, just showing you different routes that they looked at. Hey, if we have a connection road that comes out here, or we build a new road here, or we widen, what effect does that have? By the way, they did one thing that they did look at was a full widening of 378 to meet the future needs, and it ended up being 8 lanes on both sides, which isn't realistic or buildable, but that is what the model called for. So I'm going to talk about traffic counts real quick. Everybody that may have remembered when I spoke to this group probably a few years ago, we had a number, I think it was about 35,000 vehicles a day at the Corley Mill intersection, which is a very busy intersection. To give you some comparison, I-20 in a 12-hour period, when I say a day, I'm talking about the 12-hour period that encompasses the daytime. I-20 carries about 80,000 vehicles a day on it. So 378 a couple of years ago was bearing about 35,000 vehicles. We did these counts. We came up with 47,000 vehicles a day on Corley Mill at 378. So that's a 12,000 vehicle a day increase in about 2.5 years, which is significant. And we don't normally see increases that great. I'm sure a lot of it's related to the schools that went in and the timing of that count after those schools were fully built, but nonetheless, it's 45,000 vehicles a day. Now, more importantly, the number that we are working with for our construction, that 2040 time period we talked about, when we add in the percent increases that we have seen over time, not the standard ones that DOT uses for increase, but what we actually see, which I don't have to tell you is the growth here is a lot greater than it is in other places in the state, is 81,000 vehicles a day on 378 at Corley Mill. If you'll remember, I just told you I-20 carries 80,000 vehicles a day right now. So So the thought is with the current growth, we're going to have more vehicles on 378 than I-20 currently carries. So that's a big number. These 7 projects that we modeled against those numbers were then ran to see who successfully achieved the goal of hitting that 2040. There were only 3 that were successful. They were alternates 5, 6, and 7. So then we used something that traffic engineers use, which is the FHWA cost-benefit analysis. Essentially, just like you do a cost-benefit analysis in your business, which one of these am I going to get the most bang for my buck? And the answer to that is alternate 7. And I'm going to talk about alternate 7 now, which is the proposed project. But before I do that, it's really important to know what level of service means. If I've got any school teachers or former school teachers in the audience, you recognize the A, B, C, D, well, not the E, but the F anyway, as a grading system. And that's what we use in traffic also, is this A through F, but we do include the E. The difference is if you can get a C in traffic, you're doing awesome. That is great. You can't have an A or B intersection, or you very, very rarely see an A or B intersection in a highly congested area, because you just can't achieve it. You have to build, like we talked about with 378 being 8 lanes, you have to build more than you could have ever afford to build. So you shoot for a C, a D's a good result, and you want to eliminate all your E's and F's. And there are levels of F's. So before I get to the next slide, does anybody want to guess what all the intersections that we studied in the Corley Mill area were? F, every single one. Every single intersection in that area is failing. It is not able to handle the capacity that's there. Don't think that's a surprise. The next slide in red shows you what the grade is now. In green shows you what the grade will be based on the computer modeling in 2040. Not when it's built, but in the year 2040. So you're going from F's to B's and C's, a few D's here and there, but mostly everything's right in that C range. So you're averaging a C. So what is the project? Essentially, the most important piece is this, which I like to call an escape valve, a pressure valve. Don't take anything from where this route is located on here. That's yet to be determined. The engineers are going to have to see what grades work and where they've got to avoid wetlands and all that. It's just the concept of a 2-lane road that comes off of Corley Mill, crosses the interstate, and then comes out where Southeastern Freight's headquarters is on that road, Vega, that's right there. That would allow the people that are coming from River Bluff or whatever neighborhood down Corley Mill to come out, skip the whole area of this, you know, the Chick-fil-A, the Starbucks. They can miss that area if they're not going there. If they're just wanting to get on, head to West Columbia, or if they're just wanting to jump on 20, they can skip all that, come down here, get right onto the on-ramp of 20, and they're gone. So that's really the basis. That's what makes the big difference in the project. And then there's some other modifications that happen on 378, mostly using existing road. There's a little bit of new construction involved. We don't need as much right-of-way that is there with this plan because of using the alternate route, the one way this way and one way that way. The 378 is wider than it needs to be, so we actually reduce the size of 378 slightly and gain more lanes in doing so. There's this. I don't know if this is going to run or not. It really doesn't like, nope, it's not going to. It really doesn't like laptops. I'll take questions in just a moment. So this is a timeline about construction so that everybody's on the same page. One thing that I will mention is as we have started with the study and the hospitality tax revenue that was already there to be able to start that study, town council has told staff as we can find minor projects that we can pull out and go ahead and get started that work with the larger project to do that so that we can get some incremental improvements as we go, because this is probably a 5 to 6 year process. So we have done that and pulled out some improvements on Jenny Lane, which are some right-hand, and an increase in right-hand turn lanes coming out of Jenny Lane. If you drop kids off at any of the Meadow Glen schools and then try to head into Columbia or West Columbia, you realize that that's very difficult to get out of there, so we're making some improvements in there. We're also making some improvements on the I-20 ramp, so when you're getting off of I-20 right now, if you want to go to Chick-fil-A or Starbucks or any of those places over there, you have to kind of swerve across 3 lanes of traffic with others trying to get into that quick lane that's going on Corley Mill, and it's a big mess. So that lane is going to remain, so that if you are going to Corley Mill, you can just get off the interstate and go right on to Corley Mill. But if you're going to go on the other side, if you're going to head over to Jenny Lane, you'll pull all the way up to the red light and turn directly into a lane that allows you to turn there, so you can completely eliminate that weaving model that goes on right now. So those are 2 projects that have been pulled out already, and then we may run into some others, probably will run into some others that we can pull out and fast track above this bigger timeline that I'm about to describe. So alternate 7 is going to take about 2 years in design. So to get fully designed, know exactly where the roadbed is going to be, all that sort of stuff. It's going to take about a year right away, but we are able to overlap a year of right away, or 6 months of right away with the last 6 months of design. So we get in about 18 months into that design, we're going to be able to go ahead and start acquiring right away, which of course does take a little while. And then we'll go out to bid with these 2 projects together. And I call them 2 projects. One's the alternate route, the new road, and one's the improvements that are made at 378. And then those will go out to bid first half of 2020, and then hopefully we're done with construction about 2022. One way that we're able to do it a little quicker is most of that new route will be owned by the town. It will not be a DOT road, so we get to skip some of that process that DOT makes you go through to meet the federal requirements and all that. Not to say it won't be built to standards, it will be built to standards. We don't want to own something that's not maintainable, but it will be an easier process for us to go through. So that covers it. I've got a video I'm going to show you real quick to wrap, but while that's getting set up, I want to take questions on the traffic project. I think I already have one in the back. Yes, ma'am.
The timeline kind of answered that.
Okay.
But it seems like it's a long time until that outer loop is done.
I can understand your perspective on that, but I will tell you that is an extremely fast traffic project. And I'll give you the example of the phase 1 project that many are familiar with right down the street here on Main Street. From beginning of funding to end of construction, that took 14 years. And that is pretty normal for that size of project. This is a bigger project, and we've got a 5-year timeline, which is why I kind of explained a little bit about the town's going to own some of it, so we're not going to have to be as mired in the process as you normally get. Look a little bit better. Any other questions about that? Yes, sir.
What about traffic flow during the construction period?
Yeah, that's going to be bad. but construction will happen at night, and we'll try to make it as best as we can. But what's the old saying? You got to break some eggs to make an omelet. Yeah.
What's the timeline on all the new development that's going to dump additional cars into our already congested roads?
Sure. So I assume you're talking about the TIF projects. The apartments is the first portion of that. So that's actually going to Planning Commission this month, and will be hopefully under construction within the next 6 months or so. The residential portion, that one portion that's in the old clay pit, is probably pretty fast, so it's probably going to happen over the next 4 or 5 years. The rest of the build out, though, is probably over 10 years or even longer, because it's going a more standard construction model where they'll be selling the lot and the home before they actually build it. That just takes a while to build out. Yes, sir.
Question, why is the county going in and the city going in and developing business with debt? Is that so you can make money?
Well, we're not going in the development business, so we don't have any investment in the private property at all. All we're doing is saying this is happening, and we're gonna take the revenue that it's gonna produce anyway, and instead of just putting it in our general fund, we're gonna step in and try to find a solution. Because the other option is that we would have to look at the option of not providing water and sewer to that area again and stifling growth, which may sound like a positive, but that would just mean when those 80,000 vehicles a day get here, the intersection looks just like it does now. So we wouldn't be getting any improvements for it. So we're not, we have no money invested in the private. This is all public investment.
I'm just going to ask a quick update on the Church Street and the Main Street one-way. How was just a timeline on that?
As was mentioned earlier, we are, the town is completely done with design on that. It is at DOT waiting on the final permits. We've actually even had our traffic review approved. We're waiting on one final sign-off and we'll go to bid. We could have gone to bid as early as as early as November of last year. So we're just waiting on that DOT process, and then we will start construction as soon as we can. And that actually is a really short build out. I think we're going to be, less than 6 months, but probably more like 3.
Brett,
Yes, sir.
I want to commend you and the mayor and the city council for doing something the DOT should have already done.
Thank you.
For those who don't know me, I'm the county council, and I am going to vote on TIFs today. And I'm going to vote no for one and yes for the other. Yours being yes.
Thank you, sir.
This is what TIFs are designed for, guys. The TIF is designed for emergency situations, traffic and roads. And when I got elected, I heard you loud and clear. You hated traffic, you hated the roads, you wanted infrastructure, and you wanted trash gone. And Mr. Wall, with all due respect, the DOT, it's taken 2 years for them to get approval for the one-way streets. I got approval for a 4-way out at my intersection that was another major accident yesterday, and they have not even let the bids yet. So with y'all taking that lead, it's going to be 5 years. All you have to do is call, the legislative delegation is doing a great job of trying to get our money, but it's up to the citizens in this room to make the call to your House of Representative members and tell them we want our money. And right now they owe us $24 million since 1999 on the local government fund that we are demanded to pay to them, and they haven't paid us. So it's more than just involved, and you guys have taken the initiative to make something happen. As I grew up on Coulter Mill Road, I hate to see it happen, but it's happening. And we've got to get the traffic out, because I do have a business on 378. And I can tell you it's adversely affecting my business. Because come 4:30, 5 o'clock, it's backed up down the road and up the hill. And people don't want to come visit. So when we used to be 18, 17, 16, 15 years ago, busy as heck, at 6, 7 o'clock at night, we stopped. So 5 years is not fast enough, but thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And on that note, I'll close with a brief video. You can find it on our Facebook page if